So it says Dave Chappelle decides against having name attached to high school theater after Backlash. Do you remember a while ago? See, did it again. He basically he said that there was backlash at his school when he went to give at like a fundraiser, and they were it was right after the closer had come out, and people were very mad that
he did a Q&A, and students lined up and were like, "How could you say those things?" And this is a majority black high school, and he was like, "Because I'm a comedian."
Yes, and what happened was basically he said to them, he said, if you feel that when they made the announcement that they were going to donate, that they were going to name the new theater at the school after him, he said, look, as a way of kind of making it even keel, he says, look, if you feel that naming it after me is a good thing, donate in my name and say so. If you feel that naming it after me is an abhorrent idea and you shouldn't, donate to the school and say that they shouldn't.
As a former fundraiser, I was actually all on board with this because it's like his whole point was actually I'm doing this to help the school. To bring resources. So if you're annoyed, because it's really easy, especially with like school, like alumni situations, for them to be like, I don't like that you're doing it that way and bad. And I do agree that like if you went to an institution, a college, a private high school that is really not representing your values, probably don't put your money there. At the same time, I appreciated that he was like, at least I'm doing something, and so if you would also like for this to not happen, you should also do something. Exactly.
And the school and they did this, and the school decided they were going to name the building after him. It was going to be the Dave Chappelle Auditorium.
Yeah, I initially thought that this was kind of a genius PR decision, whoever made it, but now that he's walked it back in this way,
I don't know why.
What did he walk back? So how did he walk it back?
Okay, so here it says Dave Chappelle has decided against having his name attached to a new performing arts theater at his old high school following student backlash to his controversial Netflix comedy special, The Closer. The Washington Post reported that Chappelle made the announcement at the theater dedication ceremony Monday night at the Duke Ellington School of the Arts in Washington, D.C. The event had been delayed since November after students at the school had criticized the comedian for The Closer, which featured a number of jokes which they widely criticized as transphobic because they literally believe that any joke at their expense, any joke at anybody's expense is
it's not even that. It's that they're teenagers, and if one group drums up controversy over something, then everyone's going to join in because they haven't developed independent thought yet.
And they know, like, when you are like, the psychological time during like 12 to 18 is like finding your place in society and consensus building and figuring out the group environment you're in. Like, that's actually very normal and like healthy behavior in a lot of ways. It's just that like we have a lot of unhealthy values that are being promoted to them. Like, I want to look at all the teens in America and be like, are you okay? Because I feel like you guys are not okay. Like, things are just so strange for them. They are the most we talked about this, like they were not alive in a time basically without social media. Not just the internet, but like social media. That has dominated their lives. It governs the way they've learned to socialize. It governs the way that they have learned to take in information. Like,
I think anger is like a motivating factor and like principal emotion for a lot of these kids. And if they can feel like they belong by being angry about the same thing at the same time, then they'll join in.
They love the concept of indignancy.
Yeah, and Dave Chappelle, we see that he is the type of comedian that gets a rise out of people, and he enjoys that. But he also understands that these are children and they don't have critical thoughts. So he was like, okay, adults in the room, put your money where your mouth is.
He goes on here. He says, at the dedication ceremony, Chappelle directly broached the rift between him and the student body, making it clear that he was hurt by the backlash. According to the HuffPo editor, Philip Lewis, Chappelle said, no matter what they say about The Closer, it's still one of the most watched specials on Netflix, adding that it was a masterpiece. Lewis wrote that Chappelle described himself as maybe a once-in-a-lifetime talent. Speaking to the student backlash, Chappelle said, and this is the part that I found the most interesting, he said, these kids didn't understand that they were the instruments of artistic oppression, which is kind of fascinating when you think that he decided to change the name of the school to the Theater for Artistic Freedoms and Expression, which is the most generic, bland.
That's also too long.
It won't matter.
Make it punchier.
If it was his name carries a weight and a train of thought attached to it.
And a story.
And a story that will immediately bring rise to the idea of combating the narrative and staying true to what you want to talk about, even when everyone tells you that you shouldn't.
It makes me wonder if there's like behind the scenes pressure, right? So
I don't know if that's what this is.
Another donor who's like, this other donor is going to stop funding this thing if we name it after you.
That's what I'm saying.
See, now you're going to be screwing over all these kids who won't get blah, blah, blah thing they're funding.
But he doesn't, because he's actually a person with integrity. He wants to fund this theater. Like, he wants to make this donation and do whatever. I mean, I do think that for a lot of people who are, like, just naturally altruistic, like, it actually isn't about having your name on a building. That is a perk, and, like, that can be, like, an incentive for some people to make the larger donations, especially at schools. But it seems like there's more at play here. I don't feel like he just like decided one day for it to not be the Chappelle Theater.
That may come out later, that there was behind the scenes stuff, but it says he added that the more you say I can't say something, the more urgent it is for me to say it. That's why his name being attached to this is far more impactful than the concept of the Theater for Artistic Freedom and Expression, which nobody will remember.
Right. Everyone can stand behind the vague idea of artistic freedom and free expression, but then when it comes to actually defending those things in practice, it's not as easy.
Yep.
In practice, that person who's freely expressing themselves has a name, and I think it should have been his on the theater.
I think I'll go one step further to say that often free expression or like artistic freedom is a euphemism for like more progressive ideologies in American culture.
Exactly.
And in some ways I would have liked to see a newer, more interesting, euphemism there, or at least something that was actually about freedom and expression. Like, what if you named it the First Amendment Theater? That would have been hilarious.
Yeah.
But I think in some ways that makes... Again, like, I'm just developing this based on my own.
So what do you think? What do you think it was? Do you think it was a donor? Do you think?
I think okay. Again, this is just like two prefaces. My own personal theory based having worked in educational and political fundraising. I feel like there is something else at play here. I think probably either there's outrage from parents and students who are like, we will not use that theater. Like, if you name it after Dave Chappelle, because they're ungrateful. Or there is another donor to the school. And it's hard to imagine that the school has another major donor, because Dave Chappelle is, fantastically successful. So he's probably contributing a significant amount. But theoretically, there's another donor who is like, I do not want it to be the Dave Chappelle Theater, and I will pull my funding for scholarships or something else.
It's wild to me that people can be that immature and like
donations
pissy.
Are how people, not everyone, and I think Dave Chappelle falls in this other category, but often with privately funded institutions or anything, donations are how people buy influence. So someone there could be
that's how their kid gets in
I fund
later.
500 scholarships to the school, so
you're going to let my kid in,
You're not going to name it after Dave Chappelle, and I'm not going to add, whatever. The tricky part,
it's just that takes away even the pretense that you're giving money to this institution for the students attending it.
Yeah,
you're doing it for you.
Well, they're doing it to have say, like in their mind. I will say that like some people feel like, I know what's best for this place, and I deserve to have. I'm not going to work there, but I have strong values and I believe in it, and they have to do it my way.
I have a question.
That's not true for all donors. I don't want to bash donating to causes you believe in, but like often, someone who is donating several $1 million does get to say like, oh, I'm not giving money unless you do this. You have to honor donor requests when you take donations.
Does anybody know who Duke Ellington was? Was he a jazz musician? Or blues musician?
It's a name that like sounds
very familiar.
I will Google it for you.
So
Thank you.
To me, I would love to see Chappelle follow through. I just don't think that right now we're going to be able to see that, given the fact that he just if he won't stand up for it, who will?
Duke Ellington is an American composer, pianist, and lead jazz orchestra from the 1923 through the rest of his life. Born in Washington, D.C., he was raised in New York.
So, Mary, is this the type of thing where you believe that Dave Chappelle is in the wrong? He should have kept his name on the...
Yeah, I can't help but think it was a cowardly move because, like...
Or he wasn't given a choice.
Well, you had to have foreseen that type of politics would enter into the conflict. Like, you have to be able to stand your ground. And I know that he does have, like, genuine care for the students because... Otherwise, he would just be trolling like he always does.
Makes me think of, remember when Papa John had the whole, like, his whole hometown had the thing, and they renamed the building. He had, like, a whole football field named after him, and that they changed the name on that after the incidents with him, and he just kind of had to let it, because he can't do anything about that.
No, I think it's really hard. I mean, I will say that maybe, again, my completely made up theory based on just what I'm reading in this story is true, that there's something else at play and there was a reason that they couldn't put his name on it, or they were really feeling pressured not to. And he was like, look, I still want to make this donation, but I still want to pick the name of the theater. I think he could have picked a better name. I would have liked the First Amendment Theater. This one seems like a little bit
fantastic
lackluster.
name, actually. That would have been a great name.
Dave Chappelle, contact me for all your next naming opportunities. We can talk about it.
That is a fantastic name.
But you know what I mean? Like artistic freedom and expression. I get that's what he's into, but let's think about how that term is used culturally
So
right
generic. It's so generic to me. There's a super chat there, Mary.
Waffles Sensei, the beloved and empirical, said, as one of the 5 real humans on the internet, making a person donate money with their critique is a great way to filter out the humans and the bots. And if it's a bot giving you money, that's still a win.
Yep. Well, he didn't want. It wasn't about him winning. He wanted the school to win. Either way.
Yeah, that's what was like the most interesting thing. Like the fact that he is still naming he could have been like, fine, you guys don't like me, I'm not donating anymore, right? He could withdraw his donation, and then it would look like backwards mean comedian. Like maybe he did feel trapped, but like. He is following through. He encouraged others to donate. Like, I think by the end of this, he'll still have raised more money for the school than probably a lot of their other years.
Thanks for watching this clip, guys. If you want to see full episodes or follow us on social media, links are in the description below. Bye.
Bye.